All right, so after much consideration and testing and looking at everything and analyzing everything that is between logs, performance, and how much fun you can have and go into the fantasy and the lore of each spec, and let's talk about the best melee spec and the most fun melee spec for us.
As a big time melee fans, melee biased, melee aficionados, you could say that, and we have been playing pretty much all of them ever since they have been added in alpha, little by little over the course of beta, and with their inception right now in Dragonflight, as much as we had time to test them in the actual content. But a lot of them still I mean, I found that whatever I liked over the course of the development of Dragonflight is kind of still the same, although some of them kind of took the cake.
Yeah, it was bound to happen because a lot of things are happening still as the game goes on and the season is full on testing. So we are going to look at how the spec plays, how its fantasy rolls out, you know, a little bit at the performance, because I know a lot of you are interested on, you know, how these specs are actually doing in the content as well. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like a super subjective list on where we rank in terms of like fun, and fun includes everything that we have enumerated so far. Right? So it's, you know, rotation, mechanics, talent tree, you know, the complexity if you want, and at the end a little bit of performance. Now, without further ado, let's start as we always do with Arms Warrior. And like from the basis of Arms Warrior, personally, I kind of always loved it. I found it like decently fun in the past. Looking at it right now, I think like we can make an argument for all warrior specs in terms of like talent trees. They kind of are amazing to some extent. I think where maybe you could see a problem is that you still have a little bit more fun with Fury, and if you main Prot Warrior, well, I guess like that's where all the fun bits go, right?
Now people are just gonna ask you where your shield is, and I always was kind of like a fan of Arms Warrior above pretty much all of the other warrior specs. And it's not like Arms is not fun, but it just seems like everybody else is a little bit more fun this time around.
Yep. So, and performance-wise too. I mean, we have to address this as well. I mean, we all know Prot Warrior is kind of like the go-to tank almost everywhere. We know Fury is like super good in keys. So performance-wise, Arms Warrior is it's not bad, but it's definitely a little bit back behind, like as it would have been in the past. So
it has its niches, but I feel like we can only experiment those niches a little bit further down into the patch with, you know, the execute specialization and all of that stuff.
Who knows, man? We'll see. So we're gonna do these like for all patches and all seasons and stuff. But for now, like in 10.0, I think we can put it in. Okay, could play it.
Oh yeah, right? I definitely see myself playing it. I don't know if I would like. Okay, I want to log in and play some Arms now. I'm probably gonna go to some. Maybe other warrior spec, I don't know.
All right, let's talk about Assassination Rogue. Same argument as warriors. The talent trees for all rogue specs are kind of like great. Assassination specifically has been like one of the go-to melee specs, at least at the beginning of the season for the raid. Super giga pumpy single target burst, no problemo. Cleave, decent enough. I still think it had some problems in the AoE, but in terms of like the fun factor, so how it works now, all of the fantasy of like poisons and bleeds and corroding and all of those ticking in time, and then, you know, just bursting out with death mark, doubling everything on your target, then, you know, putting like a 6 or 7 combo point in Venom, having a bag proc as well. It's just amazing, and it's like super fun to play. But I think you can kind of have right now the same argument as Arms Warrior in terms of like performance. You don't see it that much in keys. You see it, but then you have Outlaw and Sub who are just like, oh boy.
I mean, when we're talking about performance, Assassination is a little bit behind the other ones, and similar to the Warrior situation, Assassination has always been this is kind of the Rogue spec that I would like to play if I would main Rogue at all times. And the single target is I've seen some numbers, and man. It's great. It's nuts.
It's fun to play.
But where it kind of like lacks a little bit for me, it is in the AoE department, and that's like I don't mind if like there's a spec that this is the single target and you kind of don't have any AoE. This is the AoE and you kind of don't have a single target. That's fine. But it feels like Assassination sacrifices way too much to gain very little AoE compared to Outlaw and Sub, so it's a little bit...
It still requires you to be a little bit more maintainy, right? Even with Indiscriminate Carnage over there, and this goes, for the record, Assassination AoE isn't bad. It's just the other specs take take the lead way off, like when compared to it, and just because Assassination still has to have this little maintaining game of, you know, like when there's a big like target pack and you have your indiscriminate carnage on cooldown, you still have to like put all of those bleeds and poisons on as many targets as you can, and it can become a little bit more tedious. Now it's hard to place this. I'm gonna be honest, because it is fun to play.
The thing is, the rogue specs are so good right now that it's kind of hard to. I feel like it's kind of hard to put Assassination on any other rogue spec level. So it kind of has to be like a little bit different. I'll probably put it near arms. I don't know which one is more farm than arms. I don't really.
They're kind of on the same spot for me.
It's fair, so, but I feel like sub and outlaw are a notch above. So
yeah, okay, we'll leave it like this. But now let's talk about Outlaw Rogue, okay? Outlaw Rogue, who has been like super present in like all the content. You've seen it on all the top of the tier lists and whatever. And okay, performance aside, we all know it's like really good.
I mean, it's undergoing a couple of changes, but before you say anything, I do have to preface this by pointing out that you have trashed the Outlaw spec for years, saying, nah, I don't want to play no pirate, man.
I'm still not thinking the pirate thing.
But what are you meaning though?
Outlaw Rogue.
You're Outlaw Rogue. So Outlaw Rogue kind of Outlaw was kind of always fun, and I kind of enjoyed playing Outlaw through BFA and Shadowlands, but what they're doing in Dragonflight with the spec is nuts, man. It's like 180. It has so many fun things, and I was actually, during the testing of the bit, I was actually kind of worried that, you know, we would kind of be pigeonholed into like a one specific build, either find the hammer or the middle side, because I was like really looking into that ambush build.
Yeah,
but dude, and the fact that you have the freedom to actually go and play with a lot of bunch of stuff, it feels amazing.
There's also the keep it rolling and Echo Reprimand build as well, like for those who prefer Among Us. So okay, just to add to Flame's disclaimer, I trashed Outlaw in the past because I hated the playstyle. First of all, I mean, I didn't vibe with the pirate squash buckler thing from the beginning, but I didn't like the playstyle because it was Giga RNG up until I think Shadowlands, and when they added a couple of conduits where you will have at least some more control over your old bones. This is why I hate it. It was too RNG. But I've played it in Shadowlands and now I'm maining it in Dragonflight because there are a lot more ways to have your, let's say, playstyle not so it's still very RNG-ish, but not as like degenerated as it was in the past. Now, one of the most fun things you can have on Outlaw is the fact that you always have something to press. This was always something cool for me. I played specs where at any given time you'll have downtime and there'll be like literally nothing to press. Pirate Paladin. So that's one thing. The second thing is it's kind of once you get the hang of it and understand how the world, what the buffs are and what to keep and not to keep, and just develop this like high APL stuff, you kind of get into like the fun aspect of it, where it's like, okay, it's kind of like second nature. There's tons of shit to press all the goddamn time, and there's obviously an order into the chaos or whatever, but the performance aside, it's just like having like the two prominent builds right now, the Audacity build and the Keep It Rolling Echo Reprimand build. Both builds are fun, but I think like performance-wise, the Audacity one is like the top. And talking to Forever Guy, he was like saying like, I don't even switch, like there's the differences between, that's an AoE build, right? The Audacity, you don't even switch it, right? You just keep all the single time, just keep it rolling, man. Keep it there. Now, I would say that one of the biggest negatives, and I still have a problem with this with Outlaw, is the fact that it's like still target capped. So you can do great in Cleave, like up to 8 targets. If you take the talent, you will do great. But once you get like 9 targets, there will be a ton of other specs that will take your face in terms of damage because you will be capped. That's it. So this is my problem. I guess having a niche for it's okay. So performance-wise, we all know.
Yeah,
it's just like if you like pressing tons of buttons and having something to press all the time, it's all there. This is giga fun.
This is definitely giga fun.
I made it, so I know Flame wants to play too.
Bias aside, I also agree that it's giga fun. Even if I don't main Outlaw, it's a blast every time I log in.
Yep. Okay, let's talk about Survival Hunter, which at its core, it's a fun spec. There's some issues there.
Yeah, it's similar to what we discussed. When was it? I think we had a melee fun tier list a couple of months ago, and it didn't seem like it changed too much. So I'm kind of still on the fence with it. And hearing people that main survival still feels like I'm not proven wrong, so survival still needs a little bit of love. I am not a fan of how they're kind of doing the talents, but it seems like they're slowly getting survival into like decent numbers. Like I've seen people play survival and they're doing decent numbers. Mine is still not maxed yet, but they're doing decent numbers, so it's okay. I guess it's promising a little bit, but it kind of brings me back to the old beginning of Shadowlands survival where it was like very underperforming all the specs, but at least then it was kind of really fun to play, and now it feels a little bit awkward and janky, and obviously that's a personal opinion. I feel like they're trying a neat little thing with the spearhead and the coordinate assault reworks, and that's really cool, but it feels like it's almost missing the mark, and with just maybe a little bit, like we're seeing a lot of tuning and a lot of address to specs, but it's mostly in terms of numbers. So I'm hoping that maybe in, I don't know, in the 10.1 patch,
maybe,
we're gonna have some like a more in-depth look at survival and maybe change a couple of things, because I do like what they're trying to envision: a bomb build, a spear build, a super single target giga build. That seems interesting on paper, but it still feels like they're not pulling it off in practice.
Yeah, I mean, once again, at its core, this can be one of the most fun specs you could ever play in the game. I mean, just the pure fantasy of a melee hunter, you know, because traditionally, well, we always like kind of got used to the idea that hunters are like a range spec or whatever. But if you think about it, you can have melee hunters no problem in the grand scope of fantasy universes and stuff. The core of it is really nice. I think, yeah, performance is a big issue here. I mean, I know not a lot of people put emphasis on this, but it kind of, at some point, it feels bad. Like you're doing everything perfectly and you're still like way behind everybody. It just doesn't feel good, right? So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put it in no way, but maybe need some love.
Yeah, need some love.
Sure.
No, it's fine. I'm interested in playing a little bit more survival and still figuring out if it's as bad as I feel. Like I feel like I need more and more playthrough, but I wouldn't say like I'm not touching this.
All right. Now, Enhancement Shaman, a different discussion here. We have been praising this spec like ever since the alpha and beta, and it's still the case right now. It's like one of those specs where I think I can have a similar argument as we did with Outlaw, because it does have a lot of things to press. Very, how would you call it? I wouldn't say RNG proc, be very aware of what to press, when to press.
I always kind of put Outlaw and Enhancement, especially more recent Outlaw, in the same boat, in the way that you have a lot of abilities to cycle through and juggle. And I mean, we all know that, you know, Enhancement is one of the busy specs, that, oh my god, are we having too many buttons?
Yeah, true.
And they have been doing a lot better at designing it, because I remember it's at the beginning of Shadowlands when I mained Enhancement, it was very, very strict on what abilities you had to press, because pretty much your entire rotation is on cooldown. And it's pretty much the same now. You might have one or two abilities, but everybody has like 3 or 4 seconds cooldown or more. So you kind of have to think a little bit of what you do and how you play. And obviously, it's very proc based, and that's kind of cool. It always kind of suffered a little bit on the long run with sometimes proc, but I don't think that's the case anymore. And it feels like it has a lot of variety when it comes to AoE builds, which is something that we kind of wanted in Shadowlands and kind of only got at the end.
Yeah, I think one of, like, so you mentioned the fact that, you know, it has tons of abilities. Not a lot of people like enjoyed the fact that you have to have a ton of keybinds for all of this. And the thing is, a lot of these abilities, like, you have to use them, and if you don't use them properly, it's very punishing. You'll fall behind, and that can be a problem for some people. But overall, a very, very fun spec indeed, and I think we can put it in decently fun here.
Yeah,
right?
It's really good. If you're the kind of person that likes Outlaw, you're likely gonna like Enhancement.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like Giga Fun and Decently Fun are basically like the specs that we are going to play more and more once we get finished with our mains. Yeah. Let's talk about the kitty cats, baby.
Cat, meow,
the cool
meow
cats.
Nerds.
I mean, you can clearly see that Blizzard this time around has given a lot more attention and love and care to ferals after I don't know how many years of total ignorance in the dark.
Oh my god, this is such a good time to be a feral druid.
Yes,
and it has been one of the specs that we have enjoyed the most, testing it coming up to Dragonflight, and it's only getting better. And with the recent changes, man, the changes that they're adding to Feral is nuts. And Feral's already good. It's not like Outlaw level. It's not like blowing the damage meters out of the park, but it's kind of like putting Boomkin on its feet in terms of like performance.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's probably Boomkin is taken to raid a little bit more and Feral is taken to dungeons a little bit more or something like this. But either way, Feral is amazing, and with the challenges, with the swaps of the talents, it's looking like it's going to be even better after the reset and when everything is going to be implemented. For me, Feral is one of the best melee specs they have designed. Really on par there with Outlaw.
Well, this is the thing. You start off by looking at the talents as they look right now, and they're like pretty good all around. Like you can definitely have some choose things which you like being super bleedy or super finishery. Are these like proper words? Finishery? I mean,
it's gonna be
ferocious bitey. Is that okay?
It's very bitey.
So the fantasy of it, like whenever we thought about feral druids, is like, okay, this is one of the specs that relies heavily on its bleed damage, and we can talk about like the good old days of snapshotting and stuff. That was interesting for some people at the time as well. Right now, I think it embodies what like the playstyles that all the feral fan base would go for. You can go for the bleed, you can go for the super finisher, ferocious bite thing, and it does it in a way that doesn't feel janky, doesn't feel I don't know, bad or delayed. Or I remember like when you had to like play with blood talents in Shadowlands, because I main feral in Shadowlands season 1, by the way. It was cool and all, but there was still becoming a point where you would just sit there and would not either get energy starved or didn't get any more combo points. It felt janky. Right now, feral feels super smooth in all departments.
It feels like it's the good parts of Shadowlands doubled or tripled.
Yes.
It feels like you have more stuff going on.
Yes.
And this is obviously a result of them reiterating talent system and adding a couple of more passives. Of course, and listening. And just like, again, I do want to strongly mention this because this is a really good point to make, and I'll make it until the record is going to be broken.
Yes.
They are constantly updating into, not only are they tuning the numbers, which is really good to keep things, balanced.
Talents.
Yeah, but also I think Feral right now is the only spec that has talent swaps in the recent class changes that they've announced.
With the reset,
Yeah, they're reducing the two of the talent nodes that cost 2 points to 1 point, and they're swapping, I think, Lunar Inspiration to a different point of the talent tree. So this is like a minor in between minor patch thing. It's not, you would normally see this in like big patches. So this just gives me hope for pretty much all of the specs actually.
Okay, let's just place this guy in Gigafun.
Yeah,
okay,
Gigafun.
Feral is Gigafun, no doubt. Okay.
He's like Max Cat.
Just keep it. All right, Frost, Death Knight. Definitely improvements all across the board.
Yes.
Let's just start it off with that. Okay. When the season started initially, I mean, I was more leaning towards Unholy DK. It should have been my main at some point. But I looked at Frost, and especially after doing like, the DK podcast we did with all of the great boys from Acarus, I've seen like the potential of Frost, man.
Oh, Frost was like kicking Unholy butt at the beginning, although Unholy is kind of like taking the cake right now. But Frost is obviously really cool, and we have been talking about Frost for the better part of the last year when it came to its design, and it's one of the more simple melee specs. It's not super complicated, right? On the left-hand side, you have the big two-hander obliterate playstyles that I personally enjoy, and that's what I usually play when I want to have some fun on Frost. On the right-hand side, you have Giga, AoE, Breathless in Dragosa, all of that stuff, and in the middle, you have all of these cool upgrades to your major cooldowns that just make it really easy to build. Simple as like, okay, I want this, I go there, I want that, I go on the other side, and it's super fun and satisfying. So it kind of like takes all of the good things that you've enjoyed about Frost DK in the last 2 expansions or more and adds a couple of things on top of it just to make it work better, function, and also make sense. And numbers-wise, we can only expect numbers to be adjusted in the future for different types of builds. And I personally have a lot of blast just swinging a big sword and slapping down people.
Obliterating everything all around. It's a success story, not regardless. I mean, sure, it does when we're looking at the performance. Yeah, it is a bit behind a couple of the melee specs, no doubt. But if you like enjoy the Death Knight team, if you enjoy like, being like Arthas or whatever, yeah, this will be a great spec to play. I think this is decently fun to place here. Right?
Sure. It's, I kind of see it Unholy a little bit ahead, but yeah, Frost is really cool.
Oh yeah, we'll get to Unholy, man. Okay, let's talk about Fury Warrior, because we have covered arms and we kind of exemplified, the fact that Fury is there. Now, Fury, I think, just became like an all-rounder great warrior spec for like mostly everything to do within the game.
Dude,
and adds that smoothness to it and fast-paced gameplay. So what could be wrong with this?
It's so good the way Fury, because I was always like, oh, I want arms, I want a big two-hander, I want a big Gromash, right? But Fury just is really well designed, man. And obviously you can see it in the performance, and pretty much everybody's playing Fury right now. And although the difference in numbers is probably not super high, Fury just feels good with the way it's designed. Obviously the talents come into it in a big way, but the fact that you have your rotations spread across a bunch of mini cooldowns and some big cooldowns, and there's always something to do. There's always like a couple of seconds where you're like, and then you're blasting again, and then you're like bursting all the numbers and Odin's Fury and Recklessness and all of that good stuff. Sure, you might have lost Bladestorm, but dude,
I didn't really feel the loss of Bladestorm, to be honest. Nah.
Bladestorm was always weird for Fury because you never really want to stop and just wait for your thing to finish.
Yeah,
right?
that's the thing. It felt like kind of like a roadblock in terms of like how the pacing of the spec went on, right? It's one of those specs that, like, okay, it fulfills the warrior fantasy hands down. Now, sure, if you want to be like Flame here and be Gromash, you know, that's cool. You can go arms, but you know what I wanted? Like I always wanted, but I'm not sure if this would be appropriate for a monk. But I still worry. Look like the Blade Master from Warcraft 3. That would be like interesting because it would like, you know, it's two weapons, two weapons in two hands, so you can like make that fantasy roll out. I always had that vibe from it a little bit, but on the other hand, it's still like berserky raginess, you know, just going
very berserky,
not stopping for anything and delivering. Plus the performance is there. I would say decently fun.
It's I would put it above Enhancement and Frost DK. It's definitely the funnest out of all.
All right, let's put it. I agree. Let's put it in here.
I wouldn't normally try to put it into Gigafun, but I think Feral and Outlaw do it a little bit better than Fury.
All right. Let's get into a Havoc Demon Hunter. Boy, what a roller coaster this spec was on. Like just going BFA Shadowlands and landing onto Dragonflight.
This has to be one of the better success stories, considering that, you know, Havoc has been, you know, the stigma of, oh, this spec doesn't really have a lot. It has three buttons, 2 passives,
and we trashed it.
Cooldown,
we trashed it in the past because that was the case.
In BFA, sure, in Shadowlands was just weird, and then they started to get good by the end, and now it feels like an actual complete spec, which is really cool, really weird, because I mean, I didn't expect this. Like, where are they coming with all this stuff? But I do see that they took a lot from Legion as well, and they kind of took a lot from the legendaries and the passives and all of it, and it makes sense because some abilities for certain specs feel a little bit forced when you take Covenant abilities and just smash them into the talent tree. Yeah. For Havoc, just seems like it's super smooth and it works. And dude, have you seen some of these Havocs, man? I've
seen it, and I feel like Havoc right now is basically a perfect spec all around. We'll talk a little bit about the negatives, but it's like super sustaining. It has like consistent AoE damage. It has like a super potent single target burst on, you know, short cooldowns, mind you. I think like one of the weaknesses, maybe it's like if you play like Momentum, for example, that could be very tricky because you can die. And some people find that fun, but in general, it has like plus it brings Chaos Brand. I mean, this is also I'm not sure if this can be put into the fun department, but at least, you know, a lot of groups will want you because of that chaos.
Well,
brand,
you can put it side by side with Feral, and Feral brings very little to a party that you probably won't get from a Resto Druid, which is probably the quintessential meta Druid spec in this season. So, but at the same time, Havoc is the quintessential meta spec of the Demon Hunter this season, and is doing really good. I do see some of the Havoc struggle a little bit in single targets, and that's a little bit weird, but I guess Havoc was really always a little bit weird in single target. I think it kind of took the torch from Windwalker.
Yeah, pretty much, but it's not that bad. Okay, plus the mobility. I mean, is this Gigafun? We put this in Gigafun.
I would put it in decently fun. It's close to Fury Warrior, I would put it.
Oh, right. Okay. I mean, it's still like, if you enjoy Havoc and you now have a lot more buttons to play around and actually understand a couple of in-depth things to do well, then this is like Gigafun. Okay, Red Paladins, all right? You guys see the shirt here? You guys, do you understand?
He's about to trash it, man, so you guys gotta know, you know, like have a segue.
We do not hate Paladins, Jesus Christ, man. We'd
I do want to also preface about this because spec and class fantasy matters a lot for me when I try to play something, because I really like to get into it, and I've always enjoyed the fantasy of Red Paladin, and I feel like they're kind of slightly missing the mark with it. I feel like they could do so many cool and awesome things with the Warrior of Light, I have the fate, but I'm gonna smash your face in kind of thing. Yep. And it feels a little bit weird. Like, obviously, we know Red Paladins are just like melting the numbers left and right, but
Yeah, performance-wise, they're good. I'm not, you know, I'm not
talking
gonna
about fun here. So
why would it be fun for Red Paladin? What would be fun for Red Paladins? Well, I feel like one of the biggest things they could have done is actually take the rogue recipe, and if they would have applied the rogue recipe to the paladins, then we would have something going on. I mean, new talents, you know, things that could be baked in, like conduits that can be baked in into other talents and so on and so forth. What I feel they lacked in terms of like in making the Red Paladin more fun is they took what was pre-existent in Shadowlands and they just half-baked it into Dragonflight. Now, again, this doesn't mean the performance is not there. No, it is there.
It's probably better than half of the specs here.
Yeah, it is there. Okay, so you can, we said this a million times, you can have a bad talent tree or whatever, or bad rotation, but still do great numbers. That's cool. I think, like, if I could live with how they made the spec tree and, you know, be at least decently fun to some capacity, but the general talent tree for Paladins just makes it so awkward, and again, so many opportunities to bake a lot of those things into each individual spec, red included here. It's just, I feel it's a waste of opportunity. And now they're buffing the generators like Crusader Strike and the Blade of Wrath and all that, which is fine, I guess, but Blade of Crusader Strike does so little damage. And
Blade
I think
of
they
Wrath
buffing
doesn't do that much overall in your damage breakdown from what I was able to notice. And I think you did touch on a couple of things. One of the other things that I personally wish they would do with Red Paladins, like, we can probably have a discussion in terms of fantasy and theme, but I feel like Red Paladin should be the tankiest melee in the game. I mean, we can argue like maybe DK should be, but Paladin is, you know, you use be the bulwark of the light and enact vengeance and all of that, and it feels way too squishy for wearing the heaviest armor in the game, and it's super slow. Like, when you have the history of Warcraft and when you have the Paladins being the mounted combat class, and it's one of the slowest, and it's one of the squishiest.
It's
like,
squishier than my rogue, man.
This is why DK does it well. DK is also slow, but DK is tanky. So you have to kind of choose which one you want to do. You cannot just have both be bad at the same time.
Yeah. So this is the thing. I want Red Paladins to be looked at and have a couple of overhauls into some departments, and I want them to be fun. I believe that the spec still needs some love.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is, again, coming from two folks that are absolutely in love with the fantasy.
I mean, we made both of those specs and we need some love, man. So it's so weird, man.
Yeah, it's very weird. Okay, now, on the other side of the spectrum, Subtelty Rogue.
Seeing some resurgence with Subtlety.
I mean, okay, performance-wise, you can definitely see, like, all over the place. You know, it's up there with Outlaw and the other top melees, right? You can see it in the raids, you can see it in dungeons. So we will put performance aside. We know it's doing good, no problemo. But when it comes to the fun element, okay, so first of all, the fantasy of it, Subtlety always used to be like this ambushy, stealthy ninja, you know, sneaky bastard, always coming in.
Bastard.
Yeah, always coming in with, you know, with the high damage. It's still there. And mind you, I find it, so this is what breaks the deal for me in terms of like comparing it Outlaw and Assassination and Sub. Sub wins the race because it's not target cap. So when you put me into like, what's the Algitar boss? The tree boss from Algitar Academy, and you have those...
With the ad face?
No cap. You can see those shuriken stars and black
I've seen you bomb, man. I've seen you demolish. I mean, everybody just stops like, what's going on? What is this, Sub Rogue? And with Sub, what always kind of like put me back when it came to fun, because we looked at Sub before, was the fact that the way that the talents are designed, I think Outlaws are better, but Sub was interesting in a way where the talents had to do a lot of damage in order for me to be able to have fun. This is one of the few specs that I feel like, oh, if it doesn't do damage, it's not going to be fun, because of the way that the talents were designed. Is like, okay, this is a generator build, and generators are supposed to slap, because you're prioritizing generators over finishers. Are like, okay, if generators are going to prioritize over finishers, that means the damage is important in actually making fun, where other specs don't really, I mean, damage is fun, but they don't really say like, oh, if you don't do big damage, this isn't as fun. So I think this is where Sub kind of fell off for me, but it seems like the way that it's scaling right now, and the way that they're adding the, the buffs and all of it, it's actually slapping. So
generators do deal damage, and you also have like the Dance Macabre over there, which like enables some really nice plays. And also, like, Secret Technique is finally a good talent to pick and use, and it's awesome. And you pair that with Dance Macabre, it's great. And it has its, like, we always had problems with the identity of Subtlety. It's 100% there. I mean, you have one of your hardest hitting abilities on Secret Technique, okay? And that will be reduced. It has its cooldown reduced based on, the finishers. And Secret Technique, it's an ability like designed in the, you know, the spec, the fantasy of...
It's been my favorite sub-ability since BFA.
Yeah, well, you're definitely gonna love. So I'm gonna put Subtlety with your okay here in GigaFun.
All right.
Yes, it's there. I'm sorry. We'll keep
it's good. It's like I always kind of like slapped out. I would see Outlaw a little bit better than Sub, but I think it's Sub is probably better than Frost DK and all of that stuff.
Okay, now I think we really have good news for the rest of it, right? So Unholy DK. Unholy DK has been like the spec which had a couple of issues going into Dragonflight, and then Dragonflight came around with its talents and basically fixed everything.
Yeah, it's pretty much the spec that we have been asking, like 99% done. When it comes to, you know, the fantasy and everything that Unholy DK used to do over the years. We talked about this endlessly and in pretty much all of the videos with, you know, pet builds and not bleed builds, but, you know, disease builds and all of that, and all the cool cooldowns enhanced with all the additions that we had over the years with the Magus of the Dead, when you had for Apocalypse, with the Frenzy Monstrosity, which I think it has a different name now, which was the legendary in Shadowlands, which was actually really cool legendary back then. And now we have Feshermite back as well, plus Pestilence, man.
Pestilence and so let me tell you something. Unholy Death Knight felt sometimes blocky and janky to play in the past,
like Minecraft,
because you had obviously you had a priority system to go for it. You still have that's fine, but similar to Red Paladins, you still had moments where you would just not have anything to press on, and this was because maybe of the lack of resource generation. Rune
it did have some downtime.
Yeah,
issues.
It did have some downtime issues, and you kind of played around that in the past. Now I feel like with everything they put on there, it's this so smooth. So you have like you have tons of abilities to juggle around with, and you have to understand, you know, how to, like, you know, make your runes generate and how to spend them, you know, your runic bar as well. So there's a lot of things. But at the end of the day, if you enjoyed the fantasy of Death Knight, especially this one where you have, like, you know, ghouls and stuff and diseases and
actually balance.
Yeah, it's like the necromantic, you know, spreading, you know, problems all over its radius.
It's the reason we'll never have a necromancer class.
Yeah, that's true, dude. It's amazing to play, and it's so smooth. As I said in the beginning, they took the issues that were previously plagued to Unholy Death Knights and fixed those, and it's just a smooth all around GigaFun. Let's put
GigaFun. It's GigaFun. I would put it. Yeah,
that's good. GigaFun. No questions asked. Cannot wait to like max it out and just start doing those dungeons. Oh my god! All right, Windwalker Monks. So you can probably see a pattern here. All the specs that will go into Decently Fun or GigaFun are basically the specs that had a lot of issues in the past, and with Dragonflight, all of those issues were addressed and covered, and they also feel amazing there.
Oh yeah,
I think Windwalker is one of the specs that has received like the most things, like the most blasts from the past. That out of all of the specs. It's kind of
also similar to Havoc, where it never really had like a full-blown talent system with a lot of.
Yeah, but this was no easy 3-button spec.
Yeah, this like we always kind of praise Windwalker, considering one of the best designed melee specs in terms of like pure abilities, like how it functioned and all the cooldowns. It did have some major drawbacks in the way some of the abilities are tuned, like Sun Kick, where it was doing very little damage, and Windwalker, for the better part of 2 expansions, really suffered in single target. I hardly see it suffering anymore. I don't know if it's the best single target spec in the game, but dude, it's slapping right now.
It's good, and the fact that it's also a little bit more forgiving in AoE as well. It's not as punishing as it was.
So many build potentials.
Yeah, there's build variety 100%, but it's like it gained access to all of the tools it was required to have in order to be smooth, fast-paced, and super. I mean, performance, you've seen it once again. You've seen it in dungeons, you've seen it in raids. There's like fights that favorite. Okay, so performance is really good. That's not gonna be a super weighty decision factor here.
Yeah.
But like fantasy-wise, it's like 100% what you want from a monk, because you kick, you fist, you jump all over the place, and you can heal sometimes, but that's not really that important.
Important is to punch things really hard, really fast,
and touch of death and all of that.
Dude, that's so fun, man. The touch of death playstyle.
It was always fun, and I feel like Dragonflight just added to it. So at least for 10.0, this is also
put it in a GigaFun. GigaFun.
Okay, so this is the final
bias
image.
alert.
Okay,
bias alert.
is okay. Our opinions after playing and testing and analyzing all of these. Okay, we talked about the talents, the builds, the lack of some things, the abundance of some other things, the fantasy of the specs and performance. We're looking at performances because again, I know a lot of you care about that, so it's all here. Yeah, we need some love for survival and red. We feel. Arms and assassination, they're like, okay, we could play it 100%. There's still like fun specs. Now, these decently fun and giga fun specs, these are all specs that we will 100% like finish leveling up and start gearing up and playing because they are 100% fun.
Giga.
And 100% fun are our Patreons.
You guys are so fun because you're supporting the content that we do, and we couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much for being a part of this team. And listen, dear viewer, if you like what we do and you want to see more of it, awesome stuff coming into the future, make sure you check the Patreon link down in the description. You'll find a couple of tiers based on what you would prefer, and some goodies there waiting for you.
Yes, thank you so much for supporting us, and thank you for watching the video. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'll catch you next time. Bye.
Peace.
Bye.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.